Alright, so I just saw The Handmaiden, and if you've read the title of this video, you already know that it is my favorite movie of the year. But The Handmaiden is the latest film from Wook Park, who did another amazing movie, Old Boy. I'd highly recommend checking that one out. I think my favorite thing about this film is that it doesn't take itself too seriously. Now, this story is very, very bizarre, and it's borderline ridiculous. So it kind of takes that self-awareness or that kind of loose humor, the loose attitude towards the story to actually make it work. Because it is very, very strange. It's, again, borderline ridiculous at some parts. But the fact that it's kind of commenting on itself and not taking things too seriously, it works very well. And now the story is about three major players, really, and a fourth that kind of comes and goes. So we have a maid, the handmaiden, of course, the titular character for this movie, and she is hired by a con man, or the count as he's called later, to go to a house and be the handmaiden for a very wealthy woman who is about to marry her uncle. And the uncle wants to marry her, so he gets her inheritance, and it's a lot of money, but the con man, the count, wants the handmaiden to go and live with this woman so that he can come in and she can kind of push the wealthy lady in the right direction, push him in the count's direction so that he can get the inheritance and so that he can give the handmaiden who he hired some of that inheritance, and she can go off on her own adventures and live the life she wants to live. So it's a very simple story, but as it kind of progresses, it sets up this kind of love triangle between the wealthy lady, the handmaiden, and the count. The handmaiden, when she gets to the house, she realizes that this wealthy lady is very, very cute. I think she calls her. Very cute. And she starts to fall for her. And the count starts to fall for her as well. So we get this kind of love triangle that's going on. And for the first 30-45 minutes, it's this very simple romance love triangle story. And it works. And it works because of many different reasons. Because of Chan-wook Park's direction and cinematography, which is brilliant, I should say. It's probably the best looking, the best feeling, sounding, and most well-directed film of the year. I said that about The Rival in my little written review, if you want to check that out. My website link is in the description. You can read The Rival review. I really like that film. But this is probably the best directed film of the year. Actually, it is. It is the best directed film I've seen this year. Chan-wook Park is really incredible with his shots, his compositions, framing, blocking. Everything he does with a purpose, and it looks amazing. And these costumes and the production design, everything visually and technically is outstanding. And the performances are great. They're great across the board. And again, the film has that kind of self-awareness, so some of the performances are a bit hammy. And that's kind of funny. This movie has this weird dark humor to it that is sporadically thrown in to kind of ease tension and take off the edge from the film, because there is some really heavy stuff that happens in the movie, and without that dark humor, it might have been too much, really.
Heavy!
それ以上入っちゃダメ。
肝に銘じておけ。蛇は無知の境界線だ。
But it's in there. It's thrown in there a little bit. Mainly the uncle is just hamming it up. And he is my favorite character in the film, really. He's an awful, awful man, but he is so compelling to watch on screen. Like, he knows that the film needs kind of that relief, and he just goes for it, and it's wonderful. He's really wonderful to watch. Everyone was great. Really, everything is great. But the reason that I love it so much is not because of the technical aspects or the performance or everything over there, because, I mean, I do love that stuff, but the story here is the meat, and the characters are the meat of this film. Again, the story is kind of ridiculous. After this first 30-45 minutes of the just basic love triangle, things go kind of off the rails. It's very similar to Gone Girl. It's probably the best comparison you can make between this film and another one is Gone Girl, because there's a point when you're like, wait, what? And it kind of takes a little bit to explain and then gets back on track with what's going on in real time. So it's very similar in structure to Gone Girl, David Fincher's Gone Girl. And I really love how it's told. It's a very simple story. Even at the very end of the film when it's wrapping up, it's still a simple story. But the way that Chan-wook Park tells it, he gives information so slowly, he kind of rations it to the audience, and he knows how you're going to think, how you're going to take that information, and where you're going to think the film's going to go. And he kind of does that. He knows what you're thinking, and he does exactly what you're thinking, but he puts a little twist on it. And every time he twists it, it gets a little bit weirder, the film. It gets a little bit more obscure and bizarre. And then he pulls the rug out from under you, and you're like, ha! And that doesn't happen very often. Most times when you watch a movie, it's either stupidly simple, and that's it. And the characters are stupidly simple, and that's it. Or the story is very simple, and the characters are drawn out. Or the story is complex, and the characters are simple. You never get a film like this that is complex but simple in its story. It evolves. It keeps moving and evolving and growing as you watch. But it's so simple. There's nothing really left for you to think about. There's a couple things here and there regarding sexuality and how that affects people and how you can be seen and how it can pervert you, how it can make you do things that you never thought you would do. So it comments on sexuality a lot in this movie, which is pretty timely, especially now with all this craze going on around sexuality and all that stuff. So it is a very timely movie in that regard, but other than that, everything is very straightforward. Most mainstream audiences would probably understand this movie. Of course, during it, they'd have a lot of questions, they'd be confused. I was. In the middle of the film, I was like, where is this going? What's happening? I don't know what is this movie. But at the end of it, at the end of all things, it is very straightforward and it is very easy to understand. And that helps because the characters are the complex part. The three main love triangle, of course, and then the uncle that's kind of like, he's almost the Joker, I guess, in a way. Now that I'm thinking about it, he's kind of just a guy that comes in, wreaks havoc, and then just kind of leaves. Like, he's kind of like the Joker. It's weird, but he's more hammy and way more fun to watch than Jared Leto. And it doles out information very slowly. And a lot of that information has to do with the characters and where their motives and loyalties actually lie. So it's kind of fun to see characters evolve and build towards an ending. They grow as the movie goes along, and it doles out information so that you can side with other people and your allegiance keeps changing. But you kind of want to see the Count go away, the con man, you know. You want to see these two, the handmaiden and the wealthy lady, get together because you like them so much, and their relationship is very interesting and intriguing and compelling and complex, whereas the con man just seems like a con man, obviously. But he's more than that. The film fleshes him out a little bit more, and you end up liking him in the end. He's still not a great guy, per se, but he's not deemed as the villain. A lot of times in films like this, the third person in the love triangle is made to be a horrible douchebag and an evil guy. But I like that this movie had the restraint enough to make all three in this love triangle feel like good people to an extent. And in the end, you kind of like all of them. The villain here is the uncle again. He's just a horrible dude, but he's fun to watch. It's this kind of weird dynamic. I wanted him on screen more, but I hated him a lot. He's just a horrible guy. This is an example of a perfect movie, a perfect modern movie. It does everything you could want from it. It is visually stunning. The direction is amazing. Production is amazing. Costumes are great. The performances are spot on. Characters are fleshed out and interesting and fun to watch. And everything it does is just so well crafted. The script, the dialogue, the constant evolving plot, the simplicity and easy to understand plot, but it's not easy enough to understand to where you forget about it. It's complex enough to where it kind of sticks in your brain and leaves you thinking about certain aspects of it. So that's why The Handmaiden works so well, and I would definitely recommend checking it out if you haven't seen it already, which not many people have. It didn't come to many theaters at all. It played in a lot of film festivals, but it was very, very limited, so if you didn't get to see it, you know, it's kind of hard to say go out and see it because nowhere is playing it. I would recommend watching it when it comes to Vudu, which probably will be pretty soon, and or Redbox, or just buy it because it's amazing. It is one of the best films of the last couple years that I've seen. I really, really love it. I would So please go check out The Handmaiden, support this movie, support cinema that is different, because it is very different, but it is something that is wholly original and unique and really, really entertaining to watch. So that's all I have for today. Stay tuned, subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye. Ha!